Well, if there's anything I learned after watching Netflix's The Gray Man, it's this. We need a sequel to The Nice Guys. I mean, come on, Ryan Gosling he's right there. Just give him a sequel to it. Come on. What's going on, everyone? James here with another real review, and today, yes, we're talking all about The Gray Man, the latest action spy thriller that's going to drop on Netflix this week, July 22nd, but thanks to Netflix, I was able to watch it early for a review, but when you do, let me know down below in the comments exactly what you thought of this movie, because there's actually quite a bit to talk about, both good and both not so good. But guys, before we get into the positives and the negatives, if it is your first time here at the channel, welcome to Real James, where I love talking about movies, TV, and all the news in between. So if you do too, go ahead and hit the big red button below, subscribe to the channel, tap on the bell, and hit the thumbs up button, because guess what? This week, a lot of content is coming your way. I mean, we got San Diego Comic-Con this weekend. Need I say more? Alrighty, also let's get into The Gray Man, directed by Anthony and Joe Russo. Yes, the Russos of MCU fame. This is only their second movie since Avengers Endgame, one being Cherry and this being the second. And The Gray Man stars Ryan Gosling, Chris Evans, Ana de Armas, and Jessica Henwick. The story is based on the novel of the same name by author Mark Greaney, and it's all about a CIA operative named Court Gentry, aka Six, who was once a highly skilled agency-sanctioned merchant of death, but now the tables have turned and he is the target being hunted across the globe. Oh, and there's the small fact that he's carrying a micro SD card that could literally crumble the CIA. So there's that. But you know what, guys? Let's go ahead and start off on an optimistic note and talk about what really works with The Gray Man. And it is this. The core cast here, our leading trio, they're pretty good. When it comes to Ryan Gosling, Chris Evans, and Ana de Armas, they really do save this movie. But let's begin with Ryan Gosling, who plays Sierra 6, one of those, well, crazy merchants of death that we just talked about. He's pretty darn good in these action roles, and in The Gray Man, there's no exception. He's incredibly good at being nonchalant, and when he's in these hand-to-hand combat sequences, these crazy shootouts, you really just buy it, and I did really buy exactly what he was giving on screen. He was just a joy to see kind of do crazy stunts and crazy things on screen, but I really enjoyed everything he did here, and his chemistry with Ana de Armas was really good too. We'll talk about that more in a little bit, but he has some really good moments with his co-stars, and I do love what he brings to the table. And ever since watching Drive, I just knew that Ryan Gosling was fit to be a leading man in an action film, and I'm just so glad that this movie really does center around him. And then there's Chris Evans, who plays Lloyd, an ex-CIA agent, and is literally the polar opposite of Ryan Gosling, because guess what? Well, Chris Evans doesn't have any morals in this movie, but he has so much bravado, and he chews up every single scene. Whenever we get him alone or with others, he has so much screen presence, guys, and he delivers these one-liners that are honestly some of the best I've heard in an action movie in a little while. I loved everything about his performance, and guys, sometimes he was funny, even though the stuff he was saying wasn't really humorous. I almost felt bad laughing at some of the stuff he said, but man, it is just so cool to see Chris Evans take on these roles post MCU. I know he's a great actor, and here he just continues to flex his muscle. I mean, literally. I looked at his bicep and I looked at mine, and I'm like, I gotta get to the gym in the morning. But then you have Ana de Armas, who rounds out this trio, and she plays Miranda, an agent who is, well, let's just say the most grounded of the three. Now, I'm a fan of Ana de Armas' acting, and ever since seeing her in No Time to Die, I just knew that she was able to really be put into these action espionage type films and succeed. And for the most part, she does well in The Gray Man, but it's really her time with Ryan Gosling that just helps her shine a little bit more, but that's more so on the writing. For a lot of the movie, they just misuse her. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But Ana de Armas, when she's running around with an RPG on her back, I was like, girl, you are selling it, and it is working for me. And the one thing I do love about Ana de Armas' acting is that she continues to be a relatable actor, and I think she is essentially me if I were in that situation. Her character makes good decisions in the movie, she has morals, and honestly I felt all of that from her performance. None of it did feel forced, and I honestly love that in some scenes she was just acting with her eyes. You know, Ana de Armas does a good job in a lot of roles lately, and she's really just continuing to build her resume, and I'm just really excited to see what's ahead for her, because I just think she's making a huge imprint on Hollywood right now, and I loved her in this role. But outside of the acting, guys, there is something to be said about this movie, because after the first act, I feel like it just continues to get better and better. And that does include the action, which I felt was lacking in the first act, but after the first 30-35 minutes, we start getting into the thick of things, and right in the middle of the movie, you have this amazing shootout at this city square that is just one of the best action sequences that I've seen this year. It's very well choreographed, very well shot, unlike a lot of the other moments in this movie, but goodness gracious, was I just holding my breath. I didn't blink once. It was incredible to see Ryan Gosling, Chris Evans, even Ana de Armas just go out and really be involved in one of the better moments in an action movie this year. And the one thing that also stood out to me is the music composition here. The score by Henry Jackman was actually really incredible. At times, especially in the first 30 minutes, I thought, oh my gosh, the score is the only thing keeping me in these scenes. And I shouldn't be surprised, because it's Henry Jackman. There's just a lot of instrumentation at play here that just adds to some of these more pulse-pounding moments, and sometimes it's the subtle music in the background that just adds to tension that's felt in between both Chris Evans and Ryan Gosling, especially during this one moment where they find themselves in a maze. Yeah, guys, there's some cool action scenes that really just are aided by the score, but again, those are the positives. I kind of want to talk about the negatives now in The Gray Man, because I am surprised by how underwhelmed I was once the credits began to roll. And I think a big reason why I felt that way is because technically this movie is very jumbled. Now, I didn't come into this expecting like a lot of crazy high-level production. It's a spy versus spy movie, but the writing is incredibly all over the place. It's messy and it lacks a punch. The only time I felt the dialogue worked was when Chris Evans was spewing one-liners or having conversations with fellow agents, but other than that, the writing for me just never really clicked. And then you have the actual filmmaking during the hand-to-hand combat scenes. While the action was pretty good in the middle of the movie, I felt that most of the hand-to-hand combat sequences and editing was pretty bad. I mean, the editing overall was awfully janky. There were a lot of moments where there were quick cuts that didn't feel natural, and then there were times where I just couldn't track the action, especially in the first act where Ryan Gosling is falling out of a plane, but still, it was just not working for me, and honestly, I kind of felt that way from start to finish. And then there are some questionable creative decisions by the Russos here to use drones. Now, earlier in the year, Michael Bay used drones pretty effectively in Ambulance, but here in The Gray Man, a lot of the drone shots are either overused or just ineffective. They don't really add much to the movie. If anything, it's very distracting because you said, oh, this is a drone shot, and you're being pulled out of, well, the scene that they're trying to bring you into. So I didn't really feel like that worked very well. And then lastly, in this section, guys, the sound mixing. Now, again, I didn't watch this in the theater. I watched this at home, but the sound mixing felt a little bit off. You know, things were muffled, natural sound was taken away. It's an interesting choice in some instances, but for the most part, the sound mixing was more distracting than it did help certain scenes. And again, guys, we're going to go back to the first act, which is incredibly rough. You have choppy dialogue. The story is literally hopping all over the place in terms of time and location, and then you got some of the stuff outside of that. I mean, why did they do our girl Jessica Henwick that dirty? And also Billy Bob Thornton. They both had some bad wigs in this movie. Like, it did not work for me at all. And if they weren't wigs, then the hair and makeup department, we gotta have some questions for you. But I was just really not feeling this kitchen sink approach by the Russos, where they were throwing everything out on the table. And you get that in the first act. The first 30 minutes, you have every single shot you'll see for the rest of the movie, all the drone shots, all the quick cuts, the really bad filming of the hand-to-hand combat sequences, and then, of course, the writing is a little all over the place. So you get all of that in the first 30 minutes, and it really did make me worried for the rest of the film. Of course, the middle is much better, but then in the third act, well, you start to feel like the movie begins to drag again. So the film has some pacing issues, and I was thinking, man, why is this film suffering as much as it is with an excellent cast and some capable filmmakers? And then I looked to our actors outside of our trio, and they were either underused, misused, or they were just out of place. I just spoke about Jessica Henwick a little bit, but man, she is such a good actress, and I enjoy pretty much everything she's in, just her performance alone. I'm not talking about the overall product, but here they underused her, and they actually like gave her some moments in the third act that just made me scratch my head. It almost felt too little, too late. I was thinking, where was this all along? Because her counterpart here, Regé-Jean Page, who also plays a CIA agent and Jessica Henwick's boss in this movie, he just wasn't selling me on this, well, this a whole approach to being a boss. He was not convincing, and unfortunately this is one of his weaker performances. I actually like him as an actor. I thought he did a good job in Bridgerton, but this performance of his was really forced and just never felt natural to me. And then you have Billy Bob Thornton, who, well, also feels a little bit out of place, you guys. I'm not gonna lie, it's not just his wig, it really is his acting in general. He felt really detached from the movie. And there were some scenes where I thought, man, mentally he must be in another headspace versus Ryan Gosling, because they just were not clicking. And even in the more emotional moments in this movie, his acting was a little bit forced. You could tell his lines were being spoken almost through his teeth, so I really wish the supporting cast was used better here, and also I wish some of the performances were a little bit more refined. But overall, you guys, what do I think of The Gray Man? Because if you heard that negative section, you must think I hate this movie. But I don't. I really don't think The Gray Man is a bad film, because there is a stretch in the middle of the movie where I actually really loved what they were doing. Everything was clicking for me. I just wish everything else in this film felt the same way. If you're coming to this for a spy versus spy that is excellent, this might not be your cup of tea, but there are some good performances that lie with Chris Evans, Ryan Gosling, and Ana de Armas. There are other performances, of course, that are either wasted or just not used properly, so I feel like there's a lot of back and forth. It's a tug-of-war internally for me when it comes to The Gray Man, but overall it really is just a decent movie, but I did come away feeling disappointed. And for the life of me, I can't figure out why the Russos post-MCU just can't get the editing right in their films, and yes, that includes Cherry. Cherry's another film where it had some great lead performances, but everything surrounding them just never really worked from start to finish. So I'm trying to figure out what is wrong, and I really think it does come down to the editing and a lot of the filmmaking choices in this film specifically, because it did take me out rather than pull me in. So guys, if I had to rate The Gray Man, what would I give it? Probably like a low 3, maybe like a 3.5 out of 5, because I'm not gonna lie to you, that action sequence in the middle was pretty impressive, but that wasn't enough to really keep the film afloat all the way through until the end of the film. So guys, there you have it. That's my real review of The Gray Man, a movie where I felt like it had a lot of potential, some really good instances of action, but overall it was something that fell a little short of the mark. But let me know down below in the comments what you think of my review and what you think of the movie. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Or do you fall kind of in the middle? And hey, if you haven't already, go ahead and hit the big red button below, subscribe to the channel, and tap on that bell, guys, for more content just like this. And again, I will repeat, San Diego Comic-Con is this weekend, which means a lot of reviews, a lot of reactions. Well, not really reviews, but we'll be reviewing the news, I guess, because there's a ton to break down, I'm sure, after this weekend ends. So guys, again, thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you at the next screening. And note to self, don't mess with Chris Evans or Ryan Gosling or Ana de Armas or Jessica Henwick.